There's so many kids that are in these orphanages that would be a tremendous blessing for a family. It was the very first night in our home that Andrea woke me up with those infamous words and saying, "I think it's time." And so it was 2 or so in the morning, and I jumped out of bed and was super excited and thinking, this is the day that I get to bring my firstborn child, or my firstborn son, into the world. He looked perfect. I was doing what every proud father would do. I was taking pictures and making videos. And as I was doing this, I could notice that the doctor and the nurses were very quiet. And they were kind of whispering back and forth to one another, and it just seemed like something might not be right. It was about 10 or so minutes after Nash was born that the doctor came up to me, and I'll never forget it. He put his arm around me and he said in a very quiet voice that he thinks that Nash has Down syndrome.
When Brady came over to tell me, I could tell by his face that something was really wrong. When he leaned down next to me and said, "The doctors think that our baby has Down syndrome."
She didn't skip a beat. It didn't change anything for her. And I knew from that moment forward that everything was going to be okay. And just by watching my wife's reaction, I felt peace. And I knew that this was something that was going to be a very special experience for us, and that we were very fortunate to get to have this child as our own.
Through my experience with Cooper and Nash, I have learned that they really are great teachers.
What I've found, and something that is a core principle for us and with RODS, is that there is tremendous urgency for these children. Because when a child goes into an orphanage, in essence, or an institution, the likelihood of them growing normally and to be able to live a full life goes down every year that they're in there. I've personally seen children that have been 6, 7, 8 years old when they were adopted, and they literally could not walk, and that they were 20 or 30 pounds. They essentially had developed to the age of a 2-year-old, and the reason for that is in many of these cultures, these children are essentially put into a crib, and that's where they stay, and that there's no interaction with other children, there's no interaction with other adults. Their world is confined to this crib. And so that's a core principle of ours, is this urgency, that time is of the essence, and that the reality is that there's many families that want to adopt these kids, and they're ready to adopt these kids. They just simply don't have the means to be able to pull it off. And so that's where RODS comes into play. We help these families by raising adoption grants, and we are the bridge to make it so that these children abandoned in these cribs are united with these families. And I've seen the aftermath, that a child that was essentially abandoned and left for dead, a year later when they're adopted is living a full life, and that they're walking, and they're playing, and that they're smiling, and that they're going to school and having birthday parties, and that mom and dad tuck them into bed every single night. And it's a huge transformation, and it's a realization that what we do truly matters, that we truly save lives. In the case of our son, Cooper was abandoned on a street corner. They found him when they guesstimated he was about 6 months old. And what happens with these children is that they will go into an orphanage, and that's typically where they'll stay for about 4 to 5 years. And that's when these children, in essence, are transferred from their orphanage to an adult mental institution.
When we brought Cooper home, we were able to travel to where he was in his orphanage and see him in that environment. It's been incredible to see the blessing that it has been for our family. We've grown in ways that we just didn't even think about before, because we didn't know it was possible. With their disabilities, there are challenges, and there are things that are hard. I believe that they have the power to help us learn a lot in many different ways.
Whenever we're in a public setting with Nash and Cooper, as a family, or whether it's just myself with both of them, I notice that individuals are more kind, they're more patient. These are children that truly are contributing members to society. From the many years of getting to work with these children, so far we've seen dozens, literally dozens of children be saved and be able to come home to a loving family. Inevitably, when this happens, we find that the comments are very common around the fact that these children have hit the jackpot, that these children have really been able to receive a tremendous blessing in being adopted by these loving families. And there's no doubt these children have received a big blessing in being adopted. But I know from personal experience that it's the families that get to adopt these children. These are the ones that receive the blessings. We, as the families, receive the biggest blessing, and I know that from personal experience.
We have realized that even though it's something that we wouldn't have initially have chosen to have our sons come with Down syndrome, it is something that we wouldn't change now if we could.
The biggest impact that somebody can make to be able to help these children is simply to donate to these children.
With RODS, our focus is really on those children that are 4, 5, or 6 years old. These are children that are right on the verge of being transferred to an adult mental institution. And in essence, we're trying to throw them a lifeline.
Unfortunately, the cost of adoption is the only thing standing in the way of these kids getting adopted. Visit the website, meet our current orphan, and most importantly, donate to RODS.